Hello, and welcome back to another episode of Critical Reactions with your host, Bryan. We're going to wrap up today with a special selection, which is where one of you tell me exactly what it is I need to check out. If you have your own suggestion for special selections, you can find a link to submit that in the description below. Today's comes at us from John. It says, Nocte Obducta Atme, which means breathe. One of my favorite bands. I especially adore their highly poetic lyrics. Since these are German, I tried my best to translate them faithfully. It did send them to me by mail, and I have included a link to the translation for anyone curious in the description. Let's dive into this and see what Nocte Obducta is bringing to the table today. Alright, we're in a pretty solid 4/4 here. Really interesting chord there. Interesting decision to hold that one out too. Very ominous, very creepy. This very sparse, intimate orchestration. Very low vocal style.
Doch schweige still, antworte nicht, wir wollen nicht die Stille auch noch töten, noch nicht. Lauschen süße Duft, es klang von uns abendlich. Und atme.
Feeling the rumble. Almost feels like there's strings there temporarily. Yeah, a little bit of playfulness in there. All right. I was expecting these kinds of vocals. Very clear production on all of this, though. We got whispers? That's fun. Almost like whisper chanting. a lot of this song, even though we have chordal movement, it typically bounces between two main chords. Yeah. Even in some of the more chordally driven sections, like in our first minute or two, we still had primary chords that ended up getting more of the focus. Yeah, hanging on to that tension by not shifting the chord and also just sitting on that note. The bass guitar almost feeling like a heartbeat. Very wide production on the vocals. Fun little syncopation as well as nuanced performance of the snare hits and that drum idea we just had. Very wide orchestration on the vocals again, with harmony. Sinister chord. Increasing tension. Keeping up that drum, the bass kick. Yeah, the bass kick energy with those snare fills. Interesting that a quarter of the guitar solo was just one note. Let's see chord idea. Ooh, that was a fun transition into this new idea. Oh man, the way that the bass kick and the snare are playing off of each other. So much reverb on these cymbals, really emphasizing the spaciousness of our section. Two chord idea. So much compression on that bass kick. It is punchy. Yeah, and I love how the chords don't shift on the downbeat, giving it the syncopated push against our very rigid drum rhythm. And it actually creates a sort of groove, even though there isn't a rhythmic component that would be syncopated against our drums, but it's syncopated via when the notes change. We still get a rhythmic element out of it. these little moments of strong melodic writing, like guitar solos, I think. Especially how it fills in the space from the pockets of movement that our rhythm guitar is doing. Yeah, the melodic layering here is really good. Bringing in those bass kicks. Oh! Yeah, this is actually working really well. The offbeat cymbal hits is an interesting decision. I legitimately thought we were done. Those 16th notes into the triplet. Oh no, that's not true. Those are all offbeat hits. That's what it is. Oh man. It almost felt like it was beginning to borrow that rhythmic idea that we heard earlier in the track. About, what was that, like 8 minutes in? And we were going to adapt that, and instead of going in that direction, we just stopped the song. Um, okay, so elephant in the room, right? Is this black metal? You guys are going to have to answer that one for me, but me sitting in front of a camera with no one to respond to my question, I'll take a shot at it. It feels blackened to me. There are certainly elements of it that I think we could call black adjacent, black metal adjacent. Some of the production, the vocal technique, even some of the, I'd say some of the chordal ideas and the melodic ideas. Once you remove the fuzz from a lot of black metal, we can actually hear stuff that's very close to what's being presented in here. What is interesting to me then is how far this deviates from that without ever feeling like we've gone into a different genre. And that's not to say that I think every part of this song feels blackened, but it feels overall cohesive despite the disparity between some of our highs and lows. And the thing that really takes me back a little bit, I'm like, wow, that's pretty good. Actually, let me restart this idea. I want to go about it a different way. One of the things that I love about black metal is that I sort of discount it. I'm not a big fan. I've said this too many times in the past year. Black metal is not my cup of tea. You guys seem to have taken that as a challenge. It's fine. It's fine. But I think the best part is I have a pretty solid idea of what traditional black metal is. And when I get tossed something that is blackened adjacent or proggy blackened or blackened anything else, we checked out blackened hair metal um, a couple weeks ago, I think. I can't remember what that band was called. It's right there if you're interested in it. That was phenomenal. That was some of the wildest stuff I've heard, and it worked kind of. I don't know how it worked, but yeah. And I think more so than any other genre, I set the bar pretty low for black metal. So all you really have to do is step outside the box a little bit, and I'm already impressed. And I think it actually tends to, I should probably do this more often. I tend to get really good reactions and analyses out of these black metal, but not black metal tracks because I go in expecting very little and end up getting surprised. And then I get excited. And when I'm excited about a song, I think I just naturally have better videos. I don't know if it's because I absorb more or I'm just more excited to talk about it. I don't know. But when I listen to a song, I'm like, wow, that's wow, never, wow. Just keep having those wow moments. I just feel like I make better videos out of that. And that's what happened here. I don't know why I expected black metal, but I did. And I wasn't disappointed. There's certainly blackened elements in here, but there's also a lot of stuff in here that works a lot better for me without giving too much up that's black metal adjacent. And this, I think, is the angle I want to go in because, as usual, you talk about a 13-minute song, give or take. I'm not going to be able to remember all of it. It's going to be more of a general overview, anyways, and I'll get into some music across this analysis as well, but also I just kind of want to talk about the cool things going on in here that remind me of black metal, but also do it in a way that's palatable to my ears. I just never thought that would happen. So the first thing I got to touch on, um, one of my big things with black metal is not being able to hear the music underneath. There's been a couple of tracks in the past, it either just has cleaner production or moves into acoustic sections that retain the same music. And I'm like, yes, this is what I want. I get to hear the music underneath the fuzz, underneath that noise. And I feel like the musical ideas here are ones that I hear a lot in black metal once we remove the tremolo picking, which is something that comes up in black metal, and the fuzzy production. We have a lot of bouncing back and forth between two ideas. We have a lot of constant strumming, even if you're not changing notes. In fact, our solo, I had mentioned that a quarter of our first guitar solo was just one note, and most of that was at one time, just bing, 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 and it's just that's such a black metal thing to do. Don't change the notes, just keep strumming. But even when we listen to some of the cleaner guitar sections, like our intro, and we have all those micro shifts. I think this is the part where it retains the heart of black metal, but does so in a different direction. And we had two chords. The entire song is built off of vamping between two chords, moving up a chord and moving down a chord, and just back and forth, back and forth. But it was really interesting how they do it. And this is something that changes a lot across the album. Each section has its own how, but it all has an underlying element to it that ties it together. There's very few times when we change a chord directly on a downbeat consistently. There's always some sort of rhythmic syncopation to it that I think is very neat. It isn't just eighth notes, and then on beat one, shift to the next chord, and then on beat one, shift to the first chord, and then on beat one, shift back to the other chord. There is syncopation to it. There is different rhythmic ideas. So maybe instead of ba da 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 da, just constant eighth notes, we have ba da 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 da. And even right there, I couldn't do just the one note. I instinctively rose up a note, which is something that they do as well. They create these rhythmically rhythmically syncopated ideas. They primarily sit it around one note or a chord sometimes. We'll hear this in a few places where they'll strum out a chord rather than a note. But within the syncopation, within the rhythm, they'll also decide, well, what if we go up a note here and then come back down to our resting point? What if we go down and come back up to our resting point? What if we jump up a couple of steps and then repeat back down, or actually descend back down a couple of times? We had nice little runs. A lot of the chords sit around, or sorry, a lot of the guitar work sits around a single note. A lot of black metal just plays the single note, and we do have a few riffs in here that just sit on the note and aren't so playful with the tone, the pitch of the note. They just sit on it. But in a lot of instances, though, we do have situations where we move up and come back down, move down, come back up, and we always find a way to return back to this center. But we don't always stay there. And every two bars, we will shift up to the next chord, next higher chord that also points us back down to this chord, which naturally feels like it goes back to this chord, which is directing us back to this chord. It is very cyclical. It feels very satisfying. It isn't an emotionally charged chordal progression, but it is one that feels satisfying to listen to. It is create tension, resolve tension, create tension, resolve tension. It is a very effective vamping idea. Now, where was I going with this though? Oh yeah, we'll do this idea, rhythmic concept, playful with the notes. Maybe go a little high, go a little low. Then when we move to the next chord, we do the same thing, but from what I gathered, it was a different rhythm, so it felt fresh. Of course, once you get through this 4-bar phrase, it doesn't change. We will continue to repeat this overall idea, but the first chord's rhythmic ideas or melodic ideas are usually different than our second chords, which allows them to feel wholly unique and not just utilizing the chords as a way to change the emotional value, but also to allow continuous analysis or continuous use of a linear style of melodic writing. And I think that is very cool, especially when you think of how many times they've come up with different rhythmic ideas or different melodic ideas, again, usually based around a rhythmic component, for every single one of these sections where they're utilizing a clean guitar. I don't think there is very many sections that wholesale copy pasted an idea from moment to moment. Every one of them felt fresh to me, although across 12 minutes of music, it's very possible that I forgot some of the stuff we heard at the beginning, and they were reutilized. And the possibility of me forgetting is very likely because a lot of this is similar. Not identical, but similar. A lot of it plays around with constant eighth notes. Very black metal. It's just the accents, when the notes change, when the chords change. Those are the things that get uniquely created from section to section. But the overall vibe of playing eighth notes and jumping back and forth between two chords is not only very black metal, but very prominent across all the sections in here. And it works well. because it keeps things feeling fresh but feeling familiar. You have this lineage through the track where when we get to the end, you can see how the song has evolved from the beginning. Everything naturally flows into the next idea, and there's strong connective tissue between all the sections. But it also allows them all to feel fresh and be their own identity while creating this linear feeling to the track. I don't know if it's actually linear. Like I said, everything kind of blurs together in hindsight. But in the moment, it's very cool just to, oh, that's different. Oh, that's new. I like how they went from this idea to this idea. Similar, but a little different. Um, and yeah, I really appreciate that. Like I said, it has roots in black metal, but it's not. And another reason why it's not black metal is the production. Everything is very clear. Our drums are clearly produced. Our guitars are clearly produced. Even when they put on the grit and get dirtier, there's clarity to it. I can hear the notes underneath the fuzz. There's plenty of space between all the notes. There is absolutely no intention of wall of sound going on in this track at all. When the growls come in, I can't understand them. It's in German and I don't speak German, but I hear syllables within the crackly growliness that's going on. Everything is done with a clarity, not a cleanliness. There's a lot of grittiness to our growls and our more distorted guitar tones, the fuzzy black metal tones. There's grit to them, but they're clear. And I really appreciate that. In some sections, it almost feels antithetical to what black metal does because there's so much space around every instrument that the clarity really shines through because of how isolated each of the instruments feels, which is very different from the hyper compressed. Everything is right next to you, and every instrument is stepping on each other's toes because there's just not enough space in this tiny little box. This is the opposite of that. This is a very wide sound stage, sound sphere, sorry, with plenty of room between our sparse instrumentation. And plenty of clarity applied to each instrument to easily hear and understand what they're doing on an in-depth level. However, there is also another moment, and I kind of referenced it here. There's a metal side to the song. And I think the metal side is interesting because we can hear remnants of everything going on so far. We have more of the black metal, both in tone and in composition. We do shift to a more rigid eighth note style when we bring in the electric guitars, or at least the overdriven guitars. Maybe the clean ones are also electric. The drums bring in the double bass kicks, eighth notes. I don't know if there's a 16th note one. There's definitely a bunch of eighth note versions of this. And we move to very rigid drumming structures, rigid guitar structures. This is when we bring in the growls. The clean sections have lower vocals that play around a lot with natural fry, really bringing in that low, deep, barely getting your vocal cords to resonate, reverberate, vibrate, whatever. The way that they make sounds, you just get the just like that really low crackle. Not a growl, as far as I'm concerned. It's not. I mean, it is false chord, but it's not a powerful false chord. It's like barely whatever. I don't know the technicalities of it. I would not call it a growl. So that is in opposition to the metal growl that we get in the metal sections. It is a part of the song. The 3 times I think we end up with one of these, 4 actually, I forgot about the ending, where we actually get raw black metal. This is compositionally and sonically very black metal, but still clear. What if black metal track had space between the instruments? That's what I hear here. And it is very neat. This is what I've asked for before. black metal with clear production so I can hear what's going on underneath the grit. Is this black metal though? I would wager most people would not say it's true black metal, and I would probably agree with them. I don't like black metal, and I found this tolerable. I also found it listenable, which is something I typically don't get with black metal. Even hi-fi black metal tends to still have a bit of compression on it to get that extra grit and wall of sound. It would be like asking, post rock to get rid of all of the overdrive and effects so I could hear what the guitarists are playing. Like you're not playing post rock at that point. You're playing a different genre. Post rock is about the effects, and as far as I can see it, Blackened music is about the grit. So I don't know if I would call this black metal, but it still compositionally has elements of black metal in it, and at least on the individual instruments, there's a ton of that compression and weight that come in to give me a blackened feel individually, but I would not say that the overall song has a blackened production to it, which is probably what I really like about it. I don't really mind gritty guitars, I don't mind the fast playing. I want to hear it though. And that's where the production typically comes in and makes it more difficult for me to enjoy. Um, and I guess that's going to lead us into our outro because this was interesting. And then we probably got to go back and there's so much I want to talk about and so much I've forgotten. All right, so our outro. Why? I don't get scared by music. Maybe scared is the wrong word. Music doesn't make me jump very often. Sometimes get taken aback, but I was legitimately startled by this. And it's not so much that it comes out of nowhere, which happens sometimes. We'll have a soft section and just out of nowhere, we're in a heavier section that's like 5 to 10 decibels louder. And it's gonna, where'd that come from? Kind of wake me up a little bit. This was different because they set me up to think the song was over. Usually in those other examples, they're mid-song. I don't have the timeline running on YouTube when I watch these, so you'd see it as well. And I try not to let the time be a factor for me. I don't want to think, oh, there's 3 minutes left. Oh, there's 2 minutes left. I try to keep it all internal. It feels like we're about 3 minutes in, that kind of thing. So there's some guesswork to it. So I didn't know that the song was over, but I did know we had been listening to it for a while. And it was a perfect ending. We resolved our chord. Our vocals were hanging on and fading out. Our guitar was hanging on to a note, fading out. Our drums were done playing. Our bass was done playing. And we faded out this note for what felt like at least half of a minute. I legitimately thought the song was over. And we've had songs that have done this as well. Songs that just have surprise endings or half codas or something. And okay, you got me, right? I thought it was, no, this is different because they startled me. We went from 0 to 11 at a time that my guard was down. And that's very different from going 0 to 11 when I'm still expecting music. And I'm curious what the lyrics are about because this is a very odd thing to do. To me, there has to be a thematic, well, it doesn't have to be, you can just be chaotic, I suppose. But I would prefer there to be a thematic reason. Why would you fake out the listener into thinking the song's over, not just lengthwise by doing this after like 11 minutes of a song, but also legitimately write a resolution? The only thing I think they could have done worse was actually let everything fade out. But to hold this fade for 30 seconds, that is typically what people do to end a song. If you're going to continue it, you might do a 5 second fade or a 10 second fade at the most to kind of push the idea that it's ending and then put in a fake out. But then we move into a very fast moving section that is oddly enough, not like anything else we had. It is close to some of the faster, metalier sections that we listened to. Metalier. But it is also more driving than we've heard before. There is more movement in our melodic lines. Our vocals are heavier than I think we've had before. Our drums are driving. It is just a very energetic section that carries energy from previous styles like this in the song, but ramps it up to the next level. So not only is it a fake out, not only do you go from 0 to 11 after such a lengthy fade out, but it's also at an intensity that has not been showcased in the song yet. It is designed to startle. And like I said, I'm curious what the thematic reason for that is once we dig into the lyrics and see what's going on. Counterpoint. I can't point out a specific situation here, but there was one moment where we had two guitars doing their own. Oh, you know what? Yeah, it was in that final moment. That's what it was. So I really like the pre-final moment. Not the driving metal section at the end, but the fake out ending before that. The long build up. This was a slow burn that existed over like a minute and a half, 2 minutes maybe, and we typically laid out our foundation, made a second layer of foundation, third layer of foundation, and then started adding layers as the song progressed. These later layers ended up making some beautiful counterpoint. We had multiple guitars playing multiple melodies that on their own were gorgeous, and when they came together, they created these beautiful intertwined moments amongst the beautiful things that they're already doing on their own. It is really gorgeous writing, and I will continue to say that I have this feeling that a lot of black metal is actually beautiful music underneath the grit and grime. Not all of it, of course, and there's some black metal that's just chords. But I'd say that the chords are probably nice once you get rid of all the fuzz as well. But we've listened to a lot of black metal, hi-fi black metal, where there's just really gorgeous writing that's present, and this is no different. Um, it's like, I don't know. I still don't know why you would cover up such beautiful writing with enough grit that you can't even hear the writing underneath anymore. Like, that just blows my mind. You put in the effort to write these beautiful lines, and then you're like, I actually don't want anyone to hear this. Not unless they got an ear for it, and that's going to take a year or so. I don't understand that mindset. I write things and I want them to be heard, so I try to aim for as clear of a production as I can. Not saying one way is better than the other. I can't wrap my mind around the other. It's so foreign to me. But anyways, here, beautiful writing. We can hear all of it. Black metal composers, when they get a chance to write melodic music, they do a phenomenal job. And I'm always talking about it, right? Whenever we have a black metal band that has an acoustic section, I'm just like, man, it's gorgeous. It always is. And either you guys are only showing me the good stuff, or black metal is all about hidden, beautiful melodies. Uh, but anyways, yeah, beautiful writing here. Counterpoint was present. Three-way counterpoint. I think at one point it was towards the end. It wasn't something that existed the whole time. And it was working on 8-beat phrases. I think. You know what? It might have been 16. Just long enough that you can hear what's going on with our new element. Not too long that it feels, at least to me, that we're moving slowly. By the time I figured out what our new instrument's doing, we're already including the next. I think it's, at least for me, very perfectly paced the way they went about doing that. Last one, we kind of touched on it already, was spatialness. But I really want to bring a little bit of the spotlight to our production here, because there are some moments I'd like to highlight, and I wish I could remember all of them. But our opening moment The track opening I thought was really neat in laying down the guitar and drums, I think, in our first section, and really showcasing small orchestration. Oh, there's another thing I got to talk about is orchestration. Um, Later on, when we bring in the low, rumbly, guttural speaking, we once again have all this spaciousness between all of our instruments, and it shows um, a very isolated sound sphere. All these instruments feel so far apart from the ones next to them, and that combined with some of the reverb really makes it feel like a large production with a very small amount of sound being put into it. It feels very empty. And this is something we'll hear again later on when we get those reverby cymbals and a single guitar, I think it was. I don't remember. There was a single instrument and cymbals, and the cymbals had so much reverb on them, and it felt like they were such small items in such a large room. Like they just continued to ring and ring and ring, like there was nothing stopping them. And so this idea of isolation pops up quite a few times in the production. And I'm curious if that's going to have anything in the lyrics to tie into. It is called Breathe. And typically, when I think of people telling me to breathe, actually, when I think of breathing in general, like not the automated breathing, if I think of the word, I think of very directed breathing, which is more to me about meditation, isolation, feeling within oneself, not worrying about external elements, focusing on the internal. So maybe there's a reason for that. But yeah, there's quite a few elements in here that are very isolating and showcase the spaciousness of the sound sphere and the amount of room between all of our instruments. Just how small our band is within the larger space the sound can take up. The last thing I want to talk about real quick, not a lot to say on it, but just instrumentation. We have our guitars and our bass and our drums and our vocals. They're all very well done, but I love the odd choice of strings sometimes. There was one moment in a heavier section where out of our four chord phrase, we had strings on our second chord, and that was it. It made that second chord sound really big, and it made the fourth chord sound empty because I was expecting this off on vibe where every even chord gets it, and it doesn't. So it feels very disproportionately weighted. And so it's an interesting little moment. The strings don't come back for a while, but I think they come back during that reverby cymbal section. Is one of the quieter ones. Oh no, it was actually the end. Again, it was one of the layers that were put on that final section. And just the texture that they bring to the table against all the guitars primarily. Um, I don't know. I really, like I said, choice moments. It's not overused. I'd say, if anything, the strings are underused, but their absence speaks volumes. It's always something I was thinking about after, I don't know, like 5 minutes into the track when we heard them the first time in that heavy section. Well, actually, in that heavy section, why is it only the one chord? And then the next section comes up. There's no cymbals here. No cymbals in the next one. No cymbals in it. Well, when are they going to bring them back? Did I even hear them there? It's like I said, it's really interesting to bring them up, let me know they're there, and have me questioning why they're not there more often. Very gutsy move. Going back to the production, I keep remembering these things. There's that one section, I think it was our second spoken word section, that had, well, actually, there were two of these, weren't there? One of them had the whisper panning. We had our low guttural speaking voice centered, and then these whispers really low in the mix, like barely able to hear them. But they're sort of panning. Sometimes they're here, sometimes they're there, sort of bouncing around, really whispery style. But the second time we used layered vocals for a similar section, we had harmonies. we had that low guttural one centered, and then we had a mid-range one on the left and a higher pitched one on the right. Really beautiful moment. Once again, I wish we would have had more of them. In fact, I think this is the perfect track for the phrase "leave your audience wanting." Because I definitely feel like every bit of this song could have went just a little bit further. The metal sections probably could have used a bit more grit and compression pulling things together. The softer sections could have used a little bit more variety. We could have used more strings. We could have used more guitar. I got to talk about the guitar solos. Could have used, actually, I did. I talked about them. I think I talked about every topic. Anyways, we could have used more of the beautiful moments. Could have used more of this instrument or that idea. I enjoyed what I heard, and I want more. Makes me want to check out more of their music. This is, yeah, perfect example of that. So yeah, I think that's that. Let's dive into some lyrics, see what's going on here. I have no idea what I'm in for. All right, so I do have the German, but I also have this translation. There's a lot of lyrics here. Finally, it has stopped raining, and only the young leaves still lose a few tears above us. A perfume of damp earth, the last daylight, hands damp and cold from picking delicate flowers, which are heavy and so bent from too much wetness, but slowly their scent is coming back. So it stopped raining, but it's not so far past the raining that the leaves are dry. They still occasionally drip if you're under the tree. Um, it's the last daylight, so it's becoming nighttime. And we have a person out here picking flowers. For a while now, it says their hands are damp and cold, so they've been out this for a bit of time. And the flowers are heavy and bent from too much wetness. There's too much water in them that's causing them to bend down, petals down. How long? I ask you, for they die in our hands now that they are uprooted by me. For you, but keep quiet, don't answer. We don't want to kill the silence too, not yet. Just listen to the scent of the clammy spring evening light and breathe. Interesting. So I was wondering where they were going with this, and it almost seems to be metaphorical, right? Almost meditative in a sense. If I'm going to lean back into that, it talks about these flowers that have had too much water, and somebody went out and picked them and knows that by picking them, they doom them to death. The only way they can survive, I mean, obviously, there's ways to help flowers survive outside of being attached to whatever tree or grass they're in. But they've kind of lost their source of energy and food that is the earth, the soil, or whatever. It says, now that they're uprooted by me, they will die in our hands. But you should keep quiet. Don't answer the question of how long until they die. We don't want to kill the silence yet. Instead, it says listen to the scent. And I wonder if that is supposed to be a cross sense line. Really nice metaphor there. Or if maybe that was a little thing about the translation. It says just listen to the scent of the spring evening light. Yeah, there's gotta be, because we have listening, which is ears, scent, which is nose, clammy, which is feeling, light, which is vision. What are you missing? Taste? Yeah, there's no taste in here. But it says use your senses to feel this environment, to absorb this metaphorical environment, and just breathe. I love that one. Just listen to the scent of the clammy spring evening. Like I can feel it. I live in a very high humidity place. We are usually between 70 and 100% humidity, kind of year round. Winters, we kind of dip into 40s and 50s, but it's a very humid place. I can feel clammy atmospheres. Just the word clammy already tells me what I need to know about the way that this environment is. Um, yeah, just so good. Um, Last fall was like staring at the scaffold. Last fall was like the murder of a god. Last fall was like a merciless gaze of the executioner on my weak, bony neck. Um, I don't know. Last winter was a deep, cold grave. Last winter was a dream that never existed. Last winter was waking at night, defenseless and naked and trembling, deprived of sleep. Okay, so this person really likes spring, but fall and winter are terrible. Fall is like an executioner gazing at you, and winter is a grave. Everything in me screams for life. I've been dead for far too long. I wonder if this is about, because, like, here in sunny old Florida, United States, we have like 9 months of summer, a month of quasi fall, and a couple of weeks of winter. That's what it feels like around here. It is just hot year round. I have been in a very cold climate. Well, not super cold. I've been in New York for winter. Uh, that's the coldest I think I've ever been. I wonder what it's like to be even further north of that and possibly even have just year long, especially once you get to winter and fall, and just watching all of the death of the leaves through autumn, and just the chill of snow for weeks and weeks and weeks across winter. Um, and how that might make someone feel. I might take. I don't like Florida. I just talked about how humid it is. I'm not a person who likes hot weather to begin with, so this is not a climate I'm particularly fond of. But maybe I do take it for granted because seeing snow and natural cycle of plants around autumn time is it could have repercussions on someone, and they could, like they say here, feel dead for far too long through the fall and the winter. Oh, if I just read the next line. Everything in me screams for life. I've been dead for far too long. A spring rain erases the evil that forbid me from smiling. I'm telling you. What is it? There's a phenomenon here. Seasonal depression. I don't know if that's the technical term for it, but that's what's popping up in my mind. People who just get depressed in the fall and winter time and liven back up in spring and summer. I wonder if that's what this is about. But where in me are those words that open those doors? Where in me are the words that open the smiling, the happiness from the rain? That showed me your eyes that led back to life. Behind those eyes lie a lake so deep and unhurried, and everything shall drown what I murdered, what now hates me. I know I'll never be as carefree as I was then, but Leth cried this deep lake, so let it wash me clean. A steaming sun sinks quietly into a foggy sleep. Regret stirs in the heart where my failure met me. For silence ruins awaken. Oh, for silent ruins awaken so many sleeping yesterdays. Young rain rests on grass like the tears about former times. Moss gently nestles against ruins that I never forgot, but I can feel my heart beating again, which had been frozen. Yeah, so we're taking the idea of seasonal depression, which I'm going to assume our lyricist suffers from. They seem like somebody who is very intimately familiar with not feeling as energetic or happy during fall and winter, and using that as a jumping off place to dive into what seems to be the feelings of loss about someone, something. I'm going to go with someone. Where in me are those words that open those doors? So, what part of me is going to put that smile on my face like the spring rain does, where it eases me, that showed me your eyes that led me back to life? There's memories of mine, I would say, is what he's saying, that of you. When I look into your eyes, they bring me happiness, and I'm trying to find those memories within myself, and I can't. That's kind of where I'm getting there. There's also a little bit of understanding of the passage of time. This is just a heavily uh, complicated, complex set of lyrics here. We have this idea. It says, "I know I'll never be as carefree as I was then." Then we go back into the mixed metaphor here, the seasonal thing with the way he feels. Steaming sun sinks quietly into a foggy sleep, and we look at ways that we can have a metaphor of physical places, silent ruins, mosses that sit against these ruins, and what they might hide. In this case, sleeping yesterdays. Uh, and he says, through these, see, sleeping yesterdays might be like hidden memories. Things you don't really remember until you smell a specific scent or see a familiar place and something gets triggered. And in these moments, he can feel his heart beating again, which he had believed to have been frozen. So these memories are locked within him. He just has a difficult time remembering them. Let your whisper in the wind with the rustle of the still young, swaying leaves become a blur. Breathing and evening and gazes and words of longing whispering voices become one. After cold years, I remember the embers of blood under skin. The warmth of security is still familiar to me. Ruins, temple, breathe. So yeah, this is a beautiful, multifaceted metaphor utilizing seasonal depression as a jumping off board for exploring the depths of the psyche and trying to find one's will to live after loss and bringing it all together. John had mentioned in the context that they really enjoyed the lyricism of this track. And I don't disagree. This is beautiful, even possibly assuming that some things got lost in translation. There's still a lot of gorgeous writing here. And I absolutely love the way everything's tied together. As usual with anything related to black metal, though, it's really difficult for me to emotionally engage with some of the ways that the music works with the lyrics. There's a lot of beautiful moments in here, and I think this is supposed to relate to when he calms down, when he breathes, when he finds these moments that put the smile on his face and remind him of spring more so than winter. But the driving metal sections, and that's just the darkness, right? That's how he feels when he can't remember these moments. That's how he feels metaphorically when it's wintertime. Like, there is this duality that's present in the lyrics and in the music, but I think that's a very, very loose connection between the two. I don't really see the story being told musically, but that is fine. I still think there's a lot of beautiful elements in the writing of both the lyrics and the music, and they don't always have to tie together to make a song awesome. And in this case, like I said, there is a small cohesion between them, and that is more than fine for me to quite enjoy what's going on here. Those are my thoughts on Nocte Obducta's Atme. Let me know what you guys thought of this track. Anything that stood out to you, anything you'd like to touch on or add on to what I said or correct what I said, hit me up in the comments. Above the comment section is a description box, and there's a link for Linktree. Takes you to this menu right here. Has everything related to the channel. You can pick up some merch, support the channel through Patreon, follow me on Twitter, join the Discord community, email me, submit your own special selections, and so much more. Above that, if you could, like, subscribe, and ring the bell. I greatly appreciate all three of those. That wraps it up for today. We'll be back tomorrow at 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, 9 p.m. UTC, with more... What are we doing? Oh, songs to cry to week, as well as another special selection. Until next time, remember to be critical, not cynical, of the music you listen to, and have a fantastic morning, afternoon, or evening, whenever you choose to watch my videos.